Hello, hello, and welcome to A Better World with Adrian, the podcast. This is where I, Adrian Schroeder, commune with you once a week and share tools, insights, experiences, modalities, portals, and healings so that you can live the life you want. You can live your dreams. We can all live our dreams, and when we do this, we contribute and build a better world together. So sit back, relax, grab a beverage, grab your highest self, an open mind, an open heart, and receive. You are worthy, and a new earth is here when we believe and be.
So nice.
Yeah, I just made that up and I was. Aloha, beautiful souls. Welcome to A Better World with Adrian. I'm so excited to be welcoming a guest onto the podcast today. So you are in for a treat. I am joined with Sam Zagar. If you are into human design, you may know her name. If not, she is a splenic projector. She is a human design guide and holistic health practitioner. By mastering her systems, Sam has become a successful entrepreneur and a recognized influence in her industry. So this co-creation with Sam is a deeper dive into human design where we go into the true breadth of this system, what it can mean for you and living your potential in this lifetime, what this all means in the road to 2027, how we can prepare for the major shift that we are approaching in this world, in this life. We go into the meaning of ceremony and ritual and roses. We go into the design crystal, really the road between discovering your human design and actually living your experiment. And I even asked Sam a couple very personal questions and just shares about my journey as a projector in human design. So this is juicy. This is beautiful. This is very powerful. I got full body chills multiple times through this conversation. One thing I will say is we dropped in right away. And so we do speak into the altar. However, we did not do the 3 deep breaths. So let us do our 3 deep breaths now. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. And one last breath before we open this portal. Inhale through the nose. Hold it at the top. Allow yourself to be suspended in time, deciding that this episode can and will change your life for the better. Exhale out the mouth. And without further ado, please enjoy this co-creation with Sam Zagar. Aloha, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of A Better World with Adrian, your unrestricted vocal channel to heal, level up, grow, and access your potential and destiny timeline for yourself and a world we're proud of. I am so excited to welcome Sam Zagar onto the podcast today. Welcome, Sam.
Thanks, Adrian.
I invited you on the podcast because I'm a fellow projector and I've been in my I've been aware of human design since 2020. I haven't been in my experiment that long. I think maybe fully in it for 6 months now, because when I first found human design, I didn't believe in it because I was like, no, I make shit happen. I was like, I don't believe in it. And then of course I couldn't sustain my not self managing life. So when I found your work, it was a full body chills, goosebump experience. Just the audacious realness that you carry in a very subtle way and systematic way. I just was like, oh my God. And I binged all your content. And then I was like, okay, she has to come on A Better World with Adrian. So I just see you and I'm so excited to share your magic with everyone.
Well, thank you. I mean, recognition's a thing that we all want, and yet when you get good recognition, it's awkward. It's vulnerable. It's like, oh, like really, you see that? Like no matter what, there's this like, thank God somebody else is validating this for me, right? Like, okay, it is true. God, that feels good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also something that I love witnessing in you is the different way your brain works. Like I grew up with my younger sibling is on the autism spectrum and has ADHD and a bunch of different other things going on with his brain, and it's a superpower.
It's actually kind of funny that you bring that up because I was just on Instagram posting stories and then running in here, but talking about how I was really struggling with, and it's, I get choosy about the words. I really want to say the right word because every word that we use in human design has a, let's call it normal world attachment to it. So if I say that my mind was really giving me problems this morning, someone without awareness of human design might hear that as I had mental health struggles. But somebody within human design might hear that and think I had strategic problems. There would be very different ways at looking at what do we even mean when we say mind. But I am quad left in my variable. I was diagnosed ADHD at 33 years old, so a very, very, very late diagnosis. I am medicated for it, but I have the lowest prescription possible. I don't know if it's working well enough. Sometimes I don't know if I should just completely give it up and let my brain be whatever my brain is supposed to be. But I mean, those are also third line trial and errors, right? Every day I'm wondering if I should reinvent what I'm doing or go about things a different way or break a bond with something else. But my mind is a very complex place. It moves faster than I can keep up with. And maybe you can relate to this. My mind feels like an MG, absolutely, in that it go, 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 and it wants to be involved with so many different things at any given point. It's exhausting. And I'll be honest, most days I would rather exercise than think because it actually feels less exhausting to me sometimes to exercise than it does to think. My brain goes so fast that sometimes it's almost like I have to just turn it loose and let it do nothing. And I have to engage my physical body in a different activity where I'm not trying to be conscious of what's going on in the mind. And that's one of the only ways I can regulate myself.
Mm. Yeah, lots to unpack there. As a mental projector, I just have the 4323 and I have the open head and I'm pure individual, and for me as well, it's like it's a different flavor, but it's that warp speed. It's like the blade that can cut through the bullshit we get to cut through in the world can cut ourselves.
Your it's so, like, when I say, there's mind and there's so many different ways we can think about it, you just brought so many more ways that we're going to think about this. Is there head definition? Is there ajna definition? And then you already pointed out that you're a pure individual. So you have so much mental processing going on all the time. But one of the complexities that you have to deal with, which thankfully I don't, is that you're a knowing person as a pure individual. You either know or you don't know. I know or I don't know. And in that moment of not knowing, I imagine it feels like spinning your wheels, processing, trying to find the knowing, but it's not something that can be found. It's something that you have to wait for to drop in. But until it drops in, there's such a sense of melancholy that, you don't know, you don't know.
Yes. I just did I just did a solo episode last week about how to make an aligned decision, because I noticed I can convince myself of anything. I really can. And I'm really grateful for the nervous system work that I've done through breath work, where I have, fully landed in my human body. And just I didn't have a cycle for years. I restarted it through breath work after trauma. And last week I had a field day with my mind, because I was realizing, hey, I wanted to join this, canoe racing club here in Hawaii. And my inner child was so excited, and I went a few times, and I just it took me like 2 days to recover, because I literally over 100 generators. And of course, I got put in the back of the boat guiding literally 5 generators who were who were paddling, and I was just steering. And then I was like, but it doesn't make sense. I have so much fun when I'm there, blah, 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 blah. And then something that one of my teachers says is Victoria Washington. I don't know if you know her. She says, body leads, mind follows. And I feel like it's almost another portal into form principle. But I had this melancholy where I was like, mind versus body. And then just, it's like my inner child pretend MG, and then the old grandmother projector, and the grandmother projector is wise. And she's like, girl, you're not supposed to be doing that.
It's funny when you say, body leads the way and the mind follows. We have the classic example of the design crystal, the personality crystal, and the magnetic monopole with the car analogy. The design is the vehicle. The magnetic monopole is the driver of the vehicle, but then the passenger is in the backseat. It's the mind going along for a ride. But let's make this a little bit funnier for a minute. When people get married and they're dragging their pop cans or whatever behind and it's noisy? That's the passenger. That's the chatter that's being drug along with where the car wants to go. It has nothing to do with actually choosing the way or anything. It's like, no, we're being dragged along for this ride, and it's noisy, 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 and it's a little celebratory. It's busy, but it's not about the mind taking over. If your body isn't regulated, I don't know if we get to really decondition at all or make any progress. You talked about doing breath work to be able to be in your body. Your mind was freaking out, your body was freaking out, but once you got your body to calm down, did it encourage your mind to calm down too?
Oh yeah, most of the time, because people in this community, if you've been listening for a while or not, it's kind of, anytime I do a breathwork journey, I usually forget what I was even worried about. And similar to what you speak about with pop HD, there's a lot of charlatans in breathwork that, they don't know, they're not trained, they don't know the science, they don't know how to hold people's trauma, and then they activate their nervous system in such a way that it makes things worse. And So I really like to frame it with, it's like a sacred space of breath work will do this for you, because a lot of people have negative experiences where it's like the direct opposite. So we definitely just dropped in fully into the conversation, and I want to acknowledge the altar, because these podcasts are transmissions. Like, I want them to change people's lives and give everyone, it's like a pivot point. Like, every time you listen, it's a pivot point, and you can pivot deeper into your destiny. And so, something that humanity has done incorrectly up till now is we stopped saying thank you, we stopped making offerings, and we stopped living lives of ceremony. And so I want to acknowledge the altar today. First, on the altar, we have truth. I'm just feeling, resonating so much truth with you already, Sam, and vulnerability, and a willingness to, be seen. And like, I'm just getting these images of like the corners of our minds, the things that maybe we might, you, me, the listener, the world, we might not want to look at or explore, or like, it might not be comfortable. That's on the altar. There's a white rose, Maui rose, on the altar, representing the angelic realm, representing the land that I get to live on, the land that we all get to live on, Mother Earth, saying thank you, thank you, thank you. I have a rose quartz crystal representing unconditional love, which I know is the core of a better world. And it lives within each of us.
It's interesting that you've used the word rose twice. You've got the white rose and you've got the rose quartz. After this podcast, actually, I'm going hiking with a girlfriend, and I am releasing a huge jar of wild rose seeds from gathering wild rose hips the year before. But I actually carve the seeds out of every rose hip that I collect when I dry them, and then I put them all back in the hiking trail where I collected them from.
Oh, that's the ceremony. That's the thank you. That's the regeneration.
As a Sun Gate 5, I have a very ritualized life. I have certain practices that are incredibly important. And, my business before Human Design was a wildcrafted company. And I taught myself all about local plant medicine, how the First Nations people traditionally use them, how to harvest them with respect, and how to say thank you, and how to give back.
Yeah. What does rose mean to you?
It's interesting what comes up for that, because I get a lot of different moments over time. And I think that this is why I have the tattoos that I have. So I'm covered in tattoos. Most of them are plants that I have a personal relationship with. Rose hips is literally covered in rose hips right here on the shoulder. One of my very specific relationships with this plant was, it felt like how to turn love on for people that had turned it off. It was a way to activate something. And right before I made the transition from my wildcrafted company to Human Design, I was at a farmer's market. I'm also markets environment. So I was at a farmer's market selling my single ingredient consecutive well-crafted stuff, even though, again, I didn't know anything about my design. And an elderly woman came in and she was flanked by two people on her sides, and they were kind of like supporting her and carrying her along. They came to my table. They didn't look at any of the products. They said directly, what do you have that can help her? Her mother died 2 weeks ago. Her brother died a week ago, and she's just been diagnosed with breast cancer. And I said, nothing on the table is what she needs. If she doesn't believe that she's going to feel love again, she's going to die. She's trying to kill herself. She's trying to shut down because she thinks that all the love that she had is now gone. And their response was, then why am I selling products when clearly I just need to be talking to people? Why aren't I just talking to people? And I closed down my wildcrafted business and I went into human design.
And that's the meaning of rose.
You got to believe you can find it again. Otherwise, you'll never find it again. But there is this inner belief that, like, we are worthy of the good feelings. And the good feelings are what make you actually want to live this life. Maybe that's a blessing of the ego coming through. I don't know, but there's a tenacity in me that wants to, well, that won't quit, that won't surrender. Like, if I lost something, I'd never believe it was gone for good. I would try again. Third line.
Yeah. And what a, and roses are beautiful, and it's, my whole desk is covered in rose petals, by the way. I just like
So feminine. They're so beautiful. They're
so
so
feminine, and they have thorns.
You have to respect them. You can't just
Yeah,
they have, there has to be
right.
communion. You have to approach it with awareness.
And on the rose energy helps me stay a projector, because otherwise I can go totally into, it's like that, people smell you. Everybody has their different cognition. But like the scent of a rose that like draws people in, it's like that magnetic, they're gonna come to you and invite you because you smell so good.
There is like this air of luxury or bouginess or
Uh-huh.
success that goes with it. Like my favorite wellness resort that I go to, the whole place smells like roses.
Uh-huh. And I also, like, you're a medical medium, like with your with your splenic, for real.
Mhm.
Let's
Sometimes I am afraid that I've made the wrong choice with going into human design because I have this gift of what I used to call body jumping, but I would be able to turn off all physical sensations in my body and replace them with somebody else's physical sensations. Once I could bring their physical sensation into my body, then I knew the truth of what I was dealing with. If I ask some questions, language is confusing and people are always trying to market something. They're always trying to hide the truth in some way, or they maybe don't even understand the truth. But when I could bring people's physical symptoms into my body, it was a different way of finding out the truth. And then I could understand. And without any education, without any training, so also possibly without any accuracy, I was able to suss out what other people were feeling. I would say, is this how you feel? Is this how you'd feel? I'd get confirmation from them. And then I'd say, well, this thing is coming up. I did it to a man at work one day. It was his turn in the rotation of people I was body jumping just to see if I could, just trying to prove a point if I could. And when I jumped into him, I felt this intense pain around my jaw, like I could not open my mouth, and it was starting to give me a headache. But rather than asking him if or why he experiences jaw pain, awareness of what else was going on in the moment was he was surrounded by women on either side. Every person around this man was a woman. And so that was something that was clear to me. And I said, why does your jaw lock up around women? Why do you feel like you can't express yourself when you're around female energy? And he said that he had 5 older sisters. They used to physically abuse him. The oldest one was the worst to him. He never got to speak his truth around his parents. And ever since then, he's had a hard time talking to women, and he started crying, and he was like, how did you know that? And I was like, I don't know, it's just what's coming through. When I look at my design now, being an unconscious channel of surrender, it is ultimately the anti-cancer channel. It's the ability to read health information. And because it's unconscious, I'm not having to go through my mind to do it. And so I do think that I have this phenomenal gift that goes completely unutilized and unrecognized now that most of my meetings are over Zoom. And I wonder at what point things will shift in this world to go back to being a little bit more in person, and what kind of effect I'm going to have at that point with not only the person's energy, but the possible awareness of everything in their design.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it makes so much sense. It's so obvious, like the way you be. And like, even when I got on this call, I have an undefined spleen. I felt your spleen. I was like, whoa, someone like stuck their hand in my body. Like, um, clearly, obviously you transmit via Zoom. I really see you as marrying human design with this. Like they go together. For me, it's like, how would you undo it? Because it's just so like magically together.
I feel like I'm on a scavenger hunt now to tie up certain things and make them more effective than if I had stayed separately. So let's say, for example, we used your breath work within, let's say, without human design. If we talk about breath work, people have a variety of reasons why they might think that they need this, or it can be a benefit to them. But maybe somebody has an experience with it and they go, everyone I know likes this, but for some reason it didn't do something for me, or maybe it had an adverse effect for me. I'm going to be really curious to know, is this person a mountains environment? Is this person smell or taste cognition? Does this person have an undefined solar plexus? I'm looking at what aspects through the body graph say that this is related to the nervous system or the lung system, or mountains needs to be in a certain level of elevation, so oxygen levels affect this person. A smell person is a nose breather, but a taste cognition is a mouth breather. So are there going to be different types of breathing exercises for each one of these cognitions? I love how specific design can make most health applications.
Yeah. And basically you take, because with breath work, it's an offshoot of holotropic breath work. It's not ujjayi, it's not, box breathing. It's like, hey, we're gonna lay down and we're gonna do a deep journey where we, like, when you talk about specific, it's like, I just imagine like you put like a key in someone and you just turn it and it's like, and what you're doing with human design, it's like you turn the key, but then the key becomes 5D and it's like this whole, it's way bigger. And what I've done, my modality is I combine it with astrology. So of course, like as you're saying, I'm like, yep, I'm close taste. Yep, I'm passive mountains. Yep, I have on. I'm like, no wonder. Um, so all of my clients that get like the biggest benefit out of breath work, you know, Libra or Gemini. Gemini rules the lungs. So it's like when you combine all of these things, that's when you really, I feel, you get out of this pop HD, like, you know, my friend described it as they're the welcoming committee. And I was like, oh my God.
HD people? Really? Oh, I love that. That's funny. I mean, I get that totally. In the sense that they have a tendency to be more like positive attitude kind of people, right? Like they're in the lightness of human design, the sugary side, the like, it will make your life so good.
Yeah, but
Whereas
then
like,
you throw up later because you had way too much sugar and it's all poison.
yeah. And like human design is not light work. You know, you go through your first shatter, like these are identity shatterers. These are like full body breakdowns of who you've been for 30 years. It's
Okay. Yeah, so now let's pivot into, I really just want to tee you up to blast some codes for human design specifically because there is so much bullshit out there and I myself was treading water in straight up bullshit for too long without knowing it. First, I really want to ask you more about something that I have a Virgo stellium. I'm obsessed with health. What's your astrology, by the way?
um Sag sun, Pisces moon, Leo rising, Capricorn stellium.
I'm a Capricorn stellium too.
Five. Five. Ugh, so
Amazing. So
much
you have the
fun.
jawline. There's a Capricorn jawline that you have.
The one trying to clench its way through business, or
Well, yeah, and all Capricorn rules the bones too, so like major teeth vibes.
much so I'm like, they're out there.
Yeah. Um, how does physical health determine people's ability to create and live their potential?
Like, why do we need the body to come first in human design in order to actualize any of it?
Yes.
Or how you're not going to experience your signature if you're unhealthy? Okay. Disease in the body is a sign of resistance. If you have disease in your body, you have resistance in your life. The core of human design is always going to be strategy and authority. And anytime that we deviate away from strategy and authority, I think it puts things out of order for a lot of people. They'll find a very cool individual piece. Let's say you find out that you're a mountains environment and you hear that putting your body in the right environment is going to remove resistance from your life. Therefore, it should remove disease from your life. It should make it easier for you to be healthier in the right environment. People hear that information, they go, okay, take me to the mountain. Is this a mountain? Does this qualify as a mountain? Am I high enough? Did I do it? Am I here? But the question is, did you get there through strategy and authority? And even when I say that, people think that that means that you had to be invited and recognized up the mountain and that your authority was okay with it. But it's also not that literal. It's more about when you're operating from a place of strategy and authority, you're suddenly treating yourself with a different level of respect, a way higher level of self-respect, because you recognize this is how people engage with me the right way. This is how they do it the wrong way. I'm going to go with the right way. It feels better. And I also have to believe that my authority can give me permission or remove permission from this. In order to follow my authority, I have to believe that I can be my authority. And if I don't like myself, if I don't respect myself, I sure as shit am not going to trust myself to be my own authority. So strategy and authority come first as life lessons for us. They teach us how to engage with ourselves, engage with others, and to actually have authority. So really, human design first teaches you self-love and self-respect. Those two things alone will drastically change how you do everything in your life. And there's a good chance that anybody who is unhealthy has not been treating themselves as if they love and respect themselves.
Yeah.
So right there, things shift. You stop being around people that make you feel bad, that encourage bad habits, that pull you out of your signature. Maybe you stop eating food that makes you feel bad. Maybe you prioritize taking care of your physical body in different ways. Maybe that's going for a walk or having a bath or going to bed at a reasonable time. But through strategy and authority, you learn what you deserve and what you're capable of and what your potential is. And then you want to protect that. You want to defend that. And then suddenly health comes a lot easier, a lot more naturally. It's not really something that we have to think about that much. We live in the age of information, and we specifically live in the age of information because at the end of the cross of planning, where we've retrograded into a first line theme of fear, all first lines have information behind them. How do we investigate this? How do we research this? We live in the age of investigation and research, but it's also going away. So that's something that's very curious to me, is the drive to research and also the support structures that were supporting us for the last 400 and something years, they're going away. So when I think about how to be healthy, not only now, but in the future, I think like, man, we really have to know ourselves. We really have to be able to advocate for what feels good. We have to be able to put boundaries around things that don't. And for all of that, we require solar plexus deconditioning, which is the point of being nine-centered in transitus right now. Can we get to a point of having healthy truth and confrontation? Most people hear truth and confrontation and they think that you need to go pick a fight with somebody else to be honest in order to be correct. And the number one confrontation that most of us are avoiding is that we've been living a not self life and we don't know how to change that. And it's been making us sick.
Yes. Because a lot of people, the people that listen to this podcast and the people in my community, they are new earth leaders. They're here to architect new earth. And so a lot of them are, they're source in human form, just like we all are. And they experience the earthly plane. They see the obvious genocide. They're like, hey, actually, like, I'm gonna jump out of my physical body because like their souls are constantly jumping out of their physical body, and they don't prioritize it because they're like, I can just do it in the 5D. I can just do ABCD in the 5D. And obviously we can do shit in the 5D, and we came here to anchor it down. We came here to actually make a world we're proud of, and that starts with a life we're proud of. And yeah, it's physical health determines our creations. It's not like the oh, maybe I'll get to that one day. It's like, yo, we got to have that first.
There is a part of a lecture where Ra is talking about the design crystal that creates our form, the personality crystal that we attracted when we're born, that the neutrino stream programmed that we identify as our personality. In many ways, we also look at this like, The body is form, the body is matter, but the personality crystal brings in our perception of soul. It comes from the personality crystal bundles in the Earth's atmosphere. The design crystal comes from the core of the Earth in the mantle. When we talk about like body and mind, the personality crystal isn't really a part of the body. The body is fully made in utero, but once we're born, there is a crystal. It's basically floating near us, next to us. It's so close to us. These matters or these atoms would be very, 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 very tiny, but it's right here. Now, body dysmorphia happens when people don't want to be in the body. That personality crystal is saying, I don't want to be here. I want to be up in the ether. I want to be in a higher dimension. I want to leave behind the problems of the physical plane. I imagine you work with a lot of people who are very, but not grounded in their actual physical body.
It's either one extreme or the other.
They're either way down here and they don't have any connection up here.
Yeah,
it's very hard to have two things function well together. One of my favorite, it's not a joke, but you can't not laugh at it. Raw makes a joke that the personality is the only part of us that cares whether or not we have sex. And the joke is that the personality's never had sex. The personality's never had sex, never going to have sex, but it sure has a lot of opinions about the kind of sex it wants to have, doesn't it? I find that fascinating.
It's not wrong.
It's not wrong. So there are so many of us that, we want to float away, really. And there are people that will be actually suicidal in order to make this happen. It might not be an obvious form of suicide. It might be something like slowly starving yourself through an eating disorder, because ultimately you want to escape the body. You want to be free of your earthly prison in some way. But the body is the life. The interesting thing is the body would function just fine without the personality crystal. What would your life look like if your personality crystal did not try and navigate for your design crystal? I would be a pig in mud. Like, I would be in the dirt all the time. I would be like hunting and picking plants, and I wouldn't be working, that's for sure. Only the not self cares about making money. It's a fascinating thing. The true self knows that as long as it lives its true self life, it will get what it needs. But the not self doesn't believe that. So the not self wants us to make money. But the real kicker is, we make a bunch of money. What do we spend it on? We try and buy our signature. You give a manifestor a bunch of money and they're going to buy peace, or their assumed version of peace. Same with a sacral being. You give them a bunch of money, they're going to try and spend it in a way that satisfies them. And then the joke is, once that money's spent, they have to go back to work to make more money to spend it on satisfaction, when the kicker was that the work is the satisfaction the entire time. If only they were doing the job that they actually liked, they would have gotten the satisfaction, the money wouldn't have mattered.
The birds are singing outside my window.
What's your variable configuration?
I can look on my neutrino design.
I'm just really curious to know. I really want to know active brain and receptive mind.
I have a passive, I have PLLDRR.
Personality, left, design, right. You have a passive brain and a strategic mind. Okay.
Yeah.
I've had a feeling that you were a crossover variable, but I figured it would go the opposite way.
So that's a really good question to ask because, like I said, I've really only been truly living my experiment for 6 months after becoming a projector. And or I've always been a projector, but being told and being deeply offended when I first I was like, no, I build shit. Like why am I was so pissed. I'm like, no, I'm a generator. No.
I thought I was an MG for sure.
Um, I might have been a little bit bitter, you might say. um, there's all these intricacies that come when you truly realize and go deep into it beyond, you're talking about strategy and authority. Strategy is how things enter your field, and then authority is how you decide what's correct for you. And you're mentioning Ra, and I noticed that a lot of people in human design don't even know who Ra is, or I mean, they say they're in human design, but they're talking about it's from my perspective, it's a big distraction and distortion from the real work, the real transformation. And my journey was I'm classically trained in music since 4. Like I was competing, doing all the things. I had a successful career playing in orchestras. I lived in Chicago, and then I built a business where I did build it as a projector. It was called Mindful Music, and I was working with kids at the piano, mindfulness, like my own system. And at the very same time, like I was pretending I was the manifesting generator. I was like, I have the idea, build it, have it, build it, have it, build it. And then I was like, oh my God, like I'm going in person to all these different clients every week. And I was totally, totally burned out. And at the very same time, the process for me has been really discovering what part of that, because I was living my signature. I felt successful. I was stacking, mad cash, doing all these things. And then it was like, oh, but this is a layer deeper. I'm supposed to live on Maui. I'm meant to lead leaders, not do this one specific thing. And, to say that I have all the answers would just be a lie. I would love to hear your thoughts and your guidance for everyone about like the transition from knowing your design to living your true experiment with the true source material, because I was met with grief. I was met with a lot of resistance. I was met with like literally, who the fuck are you? Even though I know who I am, but I was like, wait, are you transferred? Are you this? Like, so guide us.
I I have I have the question on my intake form for all new clients. When did you discover human design? And I'm very intentional about my language there because when you ask people like, "Oh, when did you get into human design?" They always give you two answers. They give you the first time they heard about it and the day that they figured out that they were going to try and live the experiment according to so many rules that they now understood. So I would say like I found human design 2018 maybe. I didn't actively truly start living this way till at least 2021. I was already working in human design because when I first came into the system, I did not have the awareness of everything that the system covers. When you hear like strategy and authority and this is your type, it honestly, it's called human design and it's not even its real name. Like right off the bat, we eliminate so much awareness of what the system is for. When we call it the science of differentiation, people go, well, what's that? And it allows you to open them up to things. But when you say human design, people have their own versions of what this is, and they also think it's very limited to humans. I needed to understand how big this system really was before I could say that I was living it, because I got so much more information as the years went on that really changed my interpretation of the foundational things, like projectors are a non-energy type. We're supposed to rest. Yeah, well, that's a little bit fucking different if you're a projector with one motor, two motors, three motors. God forbid you have a body that's active in your environment. Like, there are very different ways. If you told me that I had to rest all the time, I would have totally left behind this system years ago because I'm a busybody. It
Mhm.
wouldn't have made sense. I would have been like, it's not true. It's invalidated. Done.
Mhm.
But every time I land on something where I go, "Ah, I don't know if that quite makes sense," it's because there's something deeper to the information that I haven't applied. There's something foundational that I've been missing. I would say that I did not fully understand about living my design until I knew my strategy, my authority, my variable configuration, the four transformations associated with it, like my determination, my environment, my view, and my motivation. At minimum, projectors need to know strategy, authority, and motivation transference. But
Mhm.
knowing motivation transference doesn't really help you unless you understand how the mind works, and that it's the mind of the passenger that's in the back seat, right? Like, you have to put it in its right place. Otherwise, we're just like, you're guilt motivated. And they're like, so I'm right when I feel wrong? And I'm like, no, 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 no. Okay, so this is why we have to dig into this a little bit more. You're not really living your experiment until you're willing to gamble on the existing identity that you had before you came into human design. When you're willing to let go of your preconceived belief of who you are, that's when you've actually started the experiment, because the next step is some level of shattering.
Oh, geez, I might burst into tears. I and it's interesting because I got a very, I was living my signature as my not self. It's fucking crazy.
What
And
makes you think that it was not self?
that's a good question.
One of the
I
first things I do with projectors is acknowledge how they're already doing a good job. We're so intellectual, and it's success or failure, right? That's our signature. Failure really translates to bitterness, but it's success or failure. Success is your signature. We're all fucking terrified that we're going to fail at this. We are very, very, very intellectual people, and we will often, prove something right 9 times, but if we're faulty on the 10th time, we're like, nope, none of it's real. Like, it's all,
yeah. I think I think I never waited for any kind of invitation. I reached out to people, and I think this really goes along with what you shared about. I once heard you say, um, or you speak into the difference between an invitation and permission. I just I reached out to all these different places, and I had a very solid system for, like, when I do this, this happens every single time, and then and this happens, and it was like my path of success. Now, I was obsessed with what I did, and at the same time, I wasn't really having like a well-rounded life, I guess, but I think I'm just obsessed enough with making the world a better place. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to have a well-rounded life. I just fucking love what I do, and I love just figuring things out. And yeah, I don't know if it was not self. I think I personally had a lot come up with, like, how do I be a good projector? Which is like, how do I, now that I know I'm a projector, like, what does that mean? And kind of, I felt unhinged from myself a little bit, which, now that I know I'm a pure individual, it makes a lot of sense. I'm potentially, just soundboarding right now. I don't know. That was my experience so far. And hitting a wall in terms of like, I'm literally only one person and I'm seeing like all these clients and there's a ceiling on what I can do and like I'm tired and yeah.
Sometimes I want to sometimes I want to say things, but I have some awareness of how it might be spun against me or the system or taken out of context. So I really wait for the transmitter channel to kick on and say it the right way. But the invitation is really interesting for projectors. We absolutely need it, but we also tend to get neurotic about the intensity and frequency with which we need invitations. For example, if you're in a relationship with someone, you're in a good place in that relationship, especially if they're saying things like they love you and things like that. But, you don't ever ask them to do this thing, or to, like, you always wait for them to initiate you or to invite you, or like you're not intimate with them unless they recognize you and invite you, and you very quickly it turns into permission seeking for projectors. And sometimes, like, if you go into a place of permission seeking, what that really shows me is this is a projector with very low self-esteem, because they got their invitation, but then they need to validate it over and over and over and over again to make sure that they're still invited, because they're anxious and neurotic that they've done something wrong, or that they're not actually invited, or something's going to go terrible. A lot of people get annoyed with projector partners, friends, colleagues, whatever it is, because we can come across as needy, desperate, thirsty for our recognition. I think a very, very powerful projector is aware of what very big or very important or significant invitations are. And then through a certain level of awareness or attunement, sometimes Ra calls it, you can just tell when an invitation has expired. That's a more important thing to notice. Like, suddenly that partner stops being intimate with you, stops telling you that they love you, stops trying to be in aura with you, and you start to get resentful, you start to get confused, you start to get bitter. You know that the relationship is over. You know that they're not recognizing you, but you're just not sure what to do about it at that point. You talked about building things from a business place. I would build this and I would build this and I would build this. Now I hear that and I relate to that. I'm consistently building things in my business. It was my idea to go on a podcast or start a podcast. It was my idea for YouTube. It was my idea to do a bunch of things every time I come up with a new class, it's my idea. If I waited every single time for somebody else to initiate me into an aspect of my own business, I can imagine how quickly that would crash my self-esteem and make me feel like I consistently need other people's permission or approval. I think about creating things in our own life that only have to do with us, almost like listening to headphones really fucking loud. But nobody can hear what you're listening to. You can hear what you're listening to. You're in your own little world here, right? I'm not going to blast my speaker everywhere that I go and annoy people with what I'm doing. But if they say, hey, what are you listening to? I'm totally going to be like, you want it, earbud? You want to hear what's going on? But I'm not going to never listen to music because no one's asked me if I want to listen to music, right? Like, you're not going to stop me from being a creative force in my own life, especially as a third line. Like, I'm here to innovate. I'm here to adapt. I'm here to, reinvent the wheel fucking over and over and over again. Humans are creative creatures, but I don't involve anybody else in my creativity outside of correct strategy. I could make a class page every single day and that would be correct. and people would invite me by buying a ticket to the class and showing up. But I don't have to worry that I shouldn't be creating a class. That there's a big difference there for me between like little projector and like comfortable projector.
Yeah. Yeah, I was self. My first brand, I was self. And then I think the more I went into things, I started questioning it all. Or like, which seems pretty normal.
Right to question it all. It's smart to question it all. And then we've got, what's the undefined head center? Don't get caught up worrying about things that don't matter. It's like, think about it, question it, dream about it, fantasize about it, fucking whatever. Just don't necessarily make your decisions from there.
Right, right. Yeah, so for people listening, just through what Sam's sharing and through what I'm sharing, it's like this is all an experiment and it's a sacred science and it's a sacred assignment. Like we're all here on assignment. And there's something that I heard that I want to ask you specifically about. I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, which I don't know if you know him, but Tim, if you're listening, I know you're single and just put that out there. um he was interviewing a former Marine who worked in the White House for like international intelligence, foreign policy, security, and they were talking about the Chinese government and their plan to take over Taiwan. And they quoted the, I guess you would call him the dictator, or I would. And they said, he's like, yeah, by 2027, we're going to be prepared to take Taiwan. And I was like, they know about 2027. So,
I mean, I hear anything as a plan for post 2027, and I'm like, fuck, good luck. The world is watching. Let's see, right?
yeah.
Because what people aren't anticipating is the background frequency change. And when 2027 hits, we're going to go from a first line theme of fear, and we're going to move into a sixth line theme of innocence. Innocence is inherently individual in nature. It's mutative. It says, don't fucking influence me. It's exalted selfishness. It says, I do what I want to do. There's no fear that motivates me to do otherwise. It's entire self-leadership. What do you think an army is going to do as soon as fear goes away, as soon as tribal conditioning goes away, as soon as they're allowed to be in their innocence and empowered as their own? Half the fucking army would stand up and be like, actually, nah. It'll take a while for it to break down, but things on the planet are not going to continue the way that they have. Obviously, like this is a huge, assumption and guesstimation on my part. I can't prove the future, but in 2028, I'm going to be like, I fucking
Yes. Well,
and also, it takes years for it all to crumble. It's going to take 100 years for it all to crumble, but we'll see some big changes very quickly.
yeah, so say more about 2027 because it's written in the astrology as well. And something about this podcast and this channel is, I constantly say over and over, luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. So an opportunity is approaching and it's like, I'm just like, we're in the training grounds right now. Like, is it already happening? Yes. And
Yes.
it's very distinct. So can you speak more into what can people expect? What does that even mean for leaders and for the collective?
What we should look at is the last 400 years and what tribal influence has allowed the planet to create. We created support institutions. So when the tribal keynote is support, money is the number one meaning of what support is. Think child support, spousal support. These are ways that money is kept within the family to provide for the family, ultimately to be able to raise offspring a certain way and put them into a kind of role. There's a legacy here. So from 1615 onward, we have so much tribal influence. This is an industrial age. This is when factories are made. We have hospitals developing differently, law enforcement. When we remove the influence from that and we switch into something that is an individual time, it's no longer about the family as being the emphasis. Now, totally outside of the realm of human design, you can track some of these conversations. Like there is a lot of conversation about, the dissolution of the heteronuclear family and how things have shifted, whether it's because of divorce or because of people's sexual orientation or identity. Like there are so many reasons why the family, as we have expected it to exist over the last 400 years, is having a very hard time maintaining that. And we also will be like, this person is responsible for this agenda. And I'm like, no, there's an entire program playing out. And if you are a not self, you are a puppet of the program. That's it. If you're a puppet of the program, then we can look at all the terrible not self things happening on the world. Most people will always be puppets of the program because they're unaware. Not very many people are going to, quote unquote, wake up to their potential, which is the awareness that they can have through human design. People are very, very afraid of the idea of being their own authority. Without human design, we have outer authority. You have your pastor, your doctor, your mayor, your whatever it is. There are people in power positions all around the world. But what we're going to see happen is the dismantling of tribal outer authority and the idea that somebody else knows better than you when it comes to your life. Should a man make a decision that I've never met about whether or not I'm allowed to have an abortion? That seems really crazy to me, right? Is that man the authority of my body, or am I the authority of my body? Now, let's say I live in a place where abortions are illegal, but I'm pregnant and I want to have one anyway. There's a good chance I'm going to follow my body and I'm going to end up finding a way to have that abortion. There's an inner authority. There is the opportunity to become your own authority with more ease in the future. But most people do not trust themselves enough to be their own authority. They put their trust in other people. We look at things that make people worthy of trust. The last 400 years have said the bargain and the contract is what makes somebody worthy of trust. Here's their certificate, and here's the regulating or regulatory board that you can complain to about this person if they're not ethically doing what they said that they would, right? Like we have so many outer authority boards to be able to provide consequences to people. There is a terrifying freedom coming for us where you get to make your own choices. And that's a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Prepping for 2027 means that you can trust yourself, that you can respect yourself, that you can love yourself, that you see yourself as capable of being an authority. So whatever work people need to do in their life to be able to put themselves in a higher position in their life, that's their prep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are the authority on you.
No matter what somebody else says. They can say an apple is healthy, and I can say, I'm direct sunlight. So as long as I eat it in the sunlight, great, but if I eat it in the shade, that same apple is terrible for me.
Apples are no-go for Adrian.
That's interesting. Why?
Oh, most of them are out of season and they're just like way too big. It's my close taste, which just makes it's every time I learn I just, when you think about that authority, it just is validating. And many times, like if you're tapped into your body and your intuition, like you're already living so much of this, and then you just get to leverage it.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I love is that the more confident we get in this, the less it's a conversation and the more it's, you're just providing someone with information. You
Mhm.
could have absolutely said to me, because I'm closed taste, I don't do apples. Like, no explanation needed. But we will always try and find an explanation that we think makes sense to the person that we're talking to. So it's an easier conversation for us. It's like whether they're out of season, whether the skin is wrinkly, whether they're too big, whether they smell like grapes for some weird reason, it's, you got to know for that. Knows, knows, no.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation. It's
Thanks
been
for
an
having me.
honor to share your light, share your wisdom. We started in the feminine garden of the rose and we went deep into the crystal and talking about puppets 2027 projector journey, the journey from discovering design to living the experiment. And the final question I want to ask you, that I ask every single guest, because this is called A Better World with Adrian, is what is your definition of a better world?
An honest world. So if people actually are what they are, it would be an honest world. An honest world would be much easier for me to live in. I can take no means no. It's so efficient to move beyond that and get to the next thing. And an honest world would give people the opportunity to actually know each other. We can't be in communion as long as we're all trying to be the same, as long as we're trying to homogenize. It's just this competition for sameness, which is so boring. It's
Mhm.
so boring. A better world for me would be a more authentic world, a more accepting world, a more honest world. And if I think honesty is really how we're going to get to a better world, it makes sense to me that we are the nine-centered being in transitus who is meant to move through solar plexus deconditioning. How do we have our truth in confrontation? How do we get to a place of being honest? I believe that humans are here when you study cosmology, we are a consciousness experiment. Every evolution that we've gone through from 5-centered to 7-centered to 9-centered in transitus, and eventually we'll get to the rave post 2027. Each one of these is an evolution in a type of awareness and consciousness. And we're at the point, if you're alive right now, then you're here for the point in time when you're being called to move through solar plexus deconditioning. How do you be honest with other people? How do you say what needs to be said, and in that actually have real relationships with other people? If we're here to experience love, what that really is communion that accepts others. When we have love, we have natural acceptance. Human design will teach you to love yourself first as what you are, and then through that you can love others as what they are too. So when people if people have a response to human design and they experiment with it, I hope that those people become a part of my world. In a weird way, I don't really have to exist in the regular world. Its frequency doesn't match mine. Most regular world people don't see me. Like, I'm quite literally invisible to them, which is a weird thing as a projector. We want to be seen, we want to be recognized, and yet I'm also entirely grateful knowing that some people can't see me at all, because it means that they can't interfere with me. I really like that. I think human design has the potential to make this at least a very honest incarnation.
Mahalo. That means thank you in Hawaiian.
Well, then, mahalo.
Thank you so much. How can people An honest world, a true world, a better world. How can people connect with you?
Well, my name is Sam Zagar, and if you forget anything else I'm about to tell you, you can Google that, and all of the important things will probably come up on the first page. But there's samzagar.com, my website. I'm on Instagram at Sam Zagar, and on YouTube, Sam Zagar Human Design, and my own podcast, A New Narrative.
Amazing. Thank you so much to everybody out there. I hope this served you. May this equip you on your path. Go out there and make a stranger smile because it charges the whole field. Be the real you, be the shine, be the change. And I will see you next time on A Better World with Adrian. Thank you so much for tuning in to A Better World with Adrian. If you liked this episode, please subscribe to A Better World. Share this podcast with someone you love, someone you know that has dreams and visions to share with all of us for a better world. So subscribe, please leave a review, and let's spread this message like the wildfire of the heart, of the soul, of a better world. Follow me on Instagram at mindfuljoymuse. Tag me in your stories and let's spread this message. Don't forget, you're the only you that exists in the history of the universe. You are important, you are worthy, you are valuable, your ideas are needed and an important part of a better world. Love you and see you soon.
Nice.